Hi, and welcome to another episode of Living Resilient. Today, we'll be talking about financial resilience. And we have someone who is very experienced. She has substantial years of experience working in the finance sector. She's worked with former Oceanic Bank, now EcoBank, and ExxonMobil in Nigeria. She's also worked in Bank of Scotland, TSB, and an independent financial advisory firm called Tenant. She's been self-employed for a number of years, and she gave lots of mortgage and protection advice to many people. And recently she started working with Santander Bank. So welcome, Onyinye, to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Amma.
Thank you. I'm so happy and pleased that you're here because I know money is very important to many people. So first of all, I usually ask the question about your motivation going into this sort of a thing. So what inspired you? Why did you go into mortgage and protection?
Thank you, Amma. I'm glad to be here. What inspired me? Life, I suppose. Different things happened in life. And I like to think, and I usually say, it's more of a calling for me, but I won't bore you with all that bit. Different things led to my journey to this point. Personally, if we're speaking about mortgage and protection, for example, I was lucky when I came to the UK. I came to join my husband, and the first job I got was in the bank just a few days after I arrived. And mortgage, I started as a cashier, so mortgage wasn't something in my radar per se until I started getting lots of inquiries. But what actually made me focus on getting qualified as a mortgage advisor at the time was one, in a bit to know a bit more about this thing that people are asking me and I have no idea what they're speaking about. So there was the education part of it, but there was also the realization that a mortgage is most people's biggest bill in the UK. So if I was going to do anything in the finance world, why not be able to help more people in that area? And the more I studied for it, the more I realized, hang on a second, there seem to be two markets here. There's the folks who were born here, who were raised here, and then there's the foreign nationals. And the challenge clearly was mostly to do with foreign nationals. The criteria is different. A lot of people are not aware, even the people who were born here and raised here, financial education is not very common. So that was one of the things. Our personal experience, myself and my husband and our family, basically also was part of what pushed me, because my story is not different from most foreign nationals who wanted to get on the property ladder. There seemed to be lots of pushback in terms of the criteria. And it wasn't until I started studying for it and then started practicing that I realized, hang on a second, no, that's all rubbish. Maybe people who couldn't be bothered getting involved in the work, because there's a lot of work, when you're dealing with a foreign national and trying to meet all the criteria. You might as well go to someone who's settled and doesn't need half of the criteria that the foreign national needs. But it's a lot of things. So that's the mortgage side of things. The one I'm particularly passionate about, though, is protection. And again, that's from my personal...
I saw your post on LinkedIn when you said you're going to keep preaching protection until the cows come home. So I really didn't even know there was a difference. Obviously, there's a difference, right?
Yes.
I don't even hear too much of protection. I don't even know, to be honest. I know it's a daft question. What is protection?
No.
Mortgage is much more, popular. Everybody knows mortgage. You need a house and all that. But what is protection?
Yes, so when you qualify as a mortgage advisor, you usually most times would qualify with a double barrel. So you're a mortgage advisor and a protection advisor. Protection is fine. Basically, that's what it is. It's financial protection. It's not. I made a post on LinkedIn one time saying, "God forbid, it's not protection." Leaving it in the hands of God. I suppose as a Christian is me being the devil's advocate to say that, but it's the truth. God can do stuff, but you also need to do do stuff for yourself. So yeah, financial protection. I was glad when you said you're looking at educating people on financial resilience, because financial protection is definitely a form of financial resilience. Financial protection is just, you're thinking of now, you're working now, but what about later on? What about circumstances outside your control? So it covers a whole lot. The one most people are probably familiar with is death, which is, I say, is the worst case scenario, where someone because it's inevitable anyway.
Yep,
Everybody will die. But the question is when, and that is what nobody's able to answer. You don't know when that day is. So you want to make sure that your loved ones, especially if you're a family with young children, which was my experience growing up, you want to make sure that the people you leave behind are financially protected. So that's where life insurance comes to play. But that is one case.
So life insurance is part of that protection, the overall protection. Yes. I guess there are other things like health insurance and...
Yes, they're different. That's why I said there are different things that can be protected depending on what the scenario is. But death is one of them. So with life insurance, you're basically saying, right, I want protection for, not for you this time around because the person would have been gone, but the people that will be left behind, you want to protect them financially. So they will get a payout for the life insured. So whoever passes away, their loved ones or their named beneficiaries will get a payout. Okay. So that's life insurance, but that's just one thing that could happen out of several things. A lot of people, when they hear protection, when they hear insurance, think of, oh no, life insurance, no. Are you saying I'm going to die now? But what if the person doesn't die first? What if they fall ill first? As we've seen, even in Aberdeen, there were several cases of people who had cancer. What then happens if it's a married couple, for example, where one person becomes terminally ill or critically ill? What's going to happen? The other person might need to go to work. So this is where protection really comes in handy. Protection is not going to stop you from falling sick. It's not going to stop death from coming. It just makes life easier, basically. If someone has critical illness protection, for example, or income protection, you see that when there's a diagnosis that says something is going to happen, either the person is critically ill or the person is terminally ill, then there will be cash that will be paid out. Of course, with critical illness, for example, there's usually like a 28-day time frame if the person survives before the person will get that payout. And if they don't, then it becomes a life insurance payout, basically. But yeah, you want a situation where you're not worried about your health and worried about your finances. One of the stories that really touched me was a funeral I went for, and in hearing the couple's story, it was a wife that had breast cancer and eventually passed away. And part of the story that I heard that stuck with me, maybe because of my financial advice background, but I heard in that story that the husband had to go away to work in the Middle East. And I'm thinking, sorry, did you not say the wife was ill? And he had to go to... I knew then that they didn't have protection, because if they did, then there would be... He was working for money. So there would be, unless there's something else behind the scene that we're not aware of. But if it was for the financial security, then that would have given them that buffer to be able to concentrate, look after the wife, make sure that the family is together, settle. Sometimes some illness might mean there might be some life adjustment that might be made, because it might not be cancer. I've met a client that was blind and would need home adjustments to be able to navigate the house. So sometimes these funds come in handy to sort those sort of things. So yes, illness is one of them. Health, yeah, because it's not everything the NHS covers. Yeah. So again, I'm going to bring up cancer, but there are some stages of cancer or even some treatments of cancer that the NHS doesn't cover. And what's going to happen then? So again, these are things that are put in place to help. It won't prevent a sickness from coming, but it just helps life get easier. My personal experience was I lost my dad at 13, and I lost my dad in August. August is my worst month of the year. But I lost my dad on the 1st of August. My sister was born just a few months before. She was born in June. So I had my mom, myself as a teenager and a baby
sister.
with no financial protection. My dad, of course, most African homes, the men are usually like the breadwinners. So we were left as a family with the woman. My mom was working, luckily, and she was working full time. My mom was a nurse. She's retired now. But the income, there's a big gap there where the main income earner is no more. And you've got two young children, a baby and a teenager. How are women to survive? It wasn't easy. So these are the things that most people don't realize that financial protection can help with. I've spoken, my challenge when I used to do mortgage, because I don't do mortgage and protection anymore. I've progressed to do financial advice now where I look at investments. But when I used to do mortgage and protection, my challenge, especially speaking with people in our community, was getting them to acknowledge it's a need.
Exactly.
So when you're thinking about your needs, you're thinking about food, clothing, you also need to think about financial protection. Most people from the African community, I kid you not, you hear couples saying,
I know.
no, I don't want it. Yeah. What if my partner decides to be the one to kill me? And yeah, it was really tough. I had a couple come to my office one time, and unfortunately, and I saw this with quite a few people, there was already an illness that had been diagnosed, which makes it harder. Once you're much better off getting protection when you're hale and hearty, because then your monthly premiums would be okay. Then most providers would be able to cover you. But when you then have an illness diagnosed, it becomes a struggle to get someone that would be willing to cover you, whether it's for aneurysm or it's diabetes or whatever, which are like real life cases, real life examples I'm giving you that I came across, and it was a struggle. And then you have to look for specialists, and it just makes it really harder to get cover. And if you do get cover, it will be more expensive. So this couple came and were looking for cover, and it was like pulling teeth. It was so hard to get cover. And the question I was asking myself, I didn't say it to them then, because obviously you have to be conscious of people's emotions and feelings and thoughts. But I was saying, if only they had come a few months before, it would have been a different story.
Yeah. I mean, you have really hit the nail on the head right there. And that is why I appreciate what you're doing, because a huge part of it is the cultural differences. Many foreign nationals, I like that word that you used. I think people prefer it to migrants. Many foreign nationals come from a whole different culture where they don't even hear of such things. They don't have such systems in place. Like I said, even mortgage, you have to have your whole money to buy a house outright. So it is difficult, it is challenging for you to try to educate people in their 30s, 40s, 50s about something entirely new. And of course, it involves you giving some amount of money every month, right?
Yes.
You're paying something, and already struggling financially. So I think my question, which might be a very difficult question to ask, is how do you go about creating that awareness or educating the foreign nationals on the need to, let's focus a bit on protection, because I think that is more important. We'll come back to mortgage. We'll focus on protection. How do you go about educating people and for them to see that it is necessary, the relevance of getting protection?
Personally, especially when I was involved in giving mortgage and protection advice, I used to make sure I was active on a lot of the social media platforms. So LinkedIn, I know some people argue that LinkedIn is not a social media platform. It's a professional social media.
To be honest, it's not. I would be one of those people that argue that, because I don't see that. Now it's becoming social media, but when LinkedIn started, it was purely, very professional. But yeah, people now put in all sorts of things. As long as it is valuable information, it's okay. As long as it's not like Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to down.
No. Basically, what I was doing was wherever there's an audience,
Yeah.
I would try and put it out there. So yes, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram were the main ones I was active on. And it's just making posts to remind people that life can happen.
Yeah.
And you don't have to wait for life to happen first before you act. You're better off acting, being proactive rather than reactive. So that was what I was doing. But I was also taking advantage of certain smaller groups. So, for example, it could be the Catholic Women Organization in Aberdeen. They know what I do. They would call me to speak, and I would speak about it. It could be there was a time I spoke for an organization called Data Kirk. And yeah, if I'm talking about mortgage, I will definitely speak about protection. It could be speaking. I think I spoke for something you organized for foreign.
Yes, the culture bridge, clash between cultures,
Yes.
for international students.
Yes. So it's basically any opportunity to speak to a group of people. I would take
And that was
advantage
an
and do that.
eye-opener. I learned things that I didn't know. I told you about it after we had a discussion. I wasn't aware of, so many things. But you see, I appreciate what you're doing, and I know the people that have heard you, speak, giving insight, appreciate what you're doing. Well, there's just one person, and there's a whole lot of foreign nationals out there. So I think my question now is, what are these financial institutions, banks doing? Why I'm asking that is because I know where we come from back home. They have, what do you call them, marketers, sellers, sales people that they send them out to try and get, funds, money, people to come and open an account. That doesn't happen here, right? So there's no pressure or incentives to go and get customers. So back to my question, what are banks, financial institutions doing in order to educate this group of people within the community that are not they're not knowledgeable about, all these financial tools that we say?
Banks.
Do they have things like systems in place, things like that to reach out to people?
I'm trying to look for a straightforward way to answer the question. Banks do their best, I suppose. I think this is one of the cases of if there's not enough representation,
Okay.
it's going to be difficult to channel people and resources to focus on that area. So the banks are doing the best they can based on the information they have at hand.
Okay.
So I know that when I first started out in the bank, for example, I don't even remember speaking much about protection. Yes, maybe home insurance in the branch was something we could speak about. It was only when you got to speak with an actual advisor when you're opening an account or getting a loan that they might then, if a conversation comes out, they might refer you on to speak to someone about protection. So yeah, the banks are doing the best, I suppose, that they can do. Now things are changing because when I started, how many years? Or nearly 10 years ago now, at the bank here in the UK, the conversations we were having at the counter in the banking hall was different. We were encouraged to speak about products, but it was mostly to do with you want a credit card, you want a loan. But now that I'm back to the bank, at Santander, for example, we are encouraging such conversations because truly, I think you would feel fulfilled as a person working for an institution if you heard their story tomorrow to say, thank you very much for that conversation. Because a few years later on, we had to make a claim on whether it's life insurance or critical illness. I think you would definitely, I would feel fulfilled that, I did my job and I did a good job helping someone out. So yes, we're encouraging all the branch staff to not shy because it's a difficult topic to speak about. Insuring your life. You might die in the future. Do you want to make sure your family is protected? It's not really a comfortable conversation to have. And you spoke about Nigeria, for example, where there are marketers who would go out and it's basically cold calling. You've not met this person before. You just go out. It's different here. Here, you have to actually earn the right to have a conversation. Otherwise, people will look at you weird, and if care is not taken, they could make a complaint.
Yeah.
So the culture again is different. Yeah. But yeah, definitely I know that banks are encouraging the branch staff to speak more about all life events, not just getting a loan or getting a credit card or getting home insurance, but getting additional financial protection.
Yeah. Okay. No, I do know that they are definitely doing something, and I think that's why I did that event and I called you in to speak to the international, I think, students when they came
Yeah.
about finances, because there's so much that they are not aware of. And but I also think that, yes, you mentioned the banks, they're trying their best, they're doing something, but also there's the duty or responsibility of people to think about such things. That it may not be, like you say, it's uncomfortable to think about life insurance, or I'm not that old yet. But it's part of, I think, like saving, thinking about the future. It's
Yeah.
not just okay. No, even if you want to get a house, it's still an investment. But in a way, some sort of saving. So I think at some point that responsibility also falls on individuals in terms of what the future going to be like if something happens. There's no saving for if you need something, and something could be health. You falling sick or falling ill as well.
I think I should also add that there is this mindset that people have already about protection, because one of the pushbacks advisors get when they speak about life insurance or any form of protection is, oh, insurance companies don't pay out, they don't like to pay out. And that might be part of the reason why some people don't bother with it.
Is it true? They don't they pay out?
But that it depends. You won't say they don't pay out. I know historically it used to be, if you don't tick all the boxes as at when you did the application and you don't give accurate information all through, it might be a bit more difficult. But again, that's one of the things that the regulatory bodies have reviewed and said, right, okay, maybe there's a way to be more flexible. If you don't give, of course, there's some material information that you have to give as accurate as possible and not tell lies. So you can't, for example, say definitely that you had an underlying health issue before you applied and you didn't disclose it, and then something happens in the future, you need to make a claim and you expect to be paid. No. If you were the one who was running that insurance company, you won't want to pay. So put yourself in the insurance provider's shoes and try and see from where they're seeing from. But the flexibility has come into play where some things, they might look at it and say, okay, right, if we had known this information beforehand, we either wouldn't agree or we would have increased your premium. But we didn't, and we gave you that premium that we gave you based on the details that you gave us. So therefore, we won't pay you 100%. For example, we would pay you X amount. So those are the kind of flexibility. So when people say it doesn't pay out, that tells me whoever has told you the story didn't disclose everything that they were supposed to disclose. And that's why they haven't paid out.
Don't they get some sort of report from the medical, like a medical report to back up whatever you fill down in the form? They do.
They do.
So that should, valid whatever, if you have any underlying anything. That should be flagged up in the report.
Yes. The way it is now, remember, is different from the way it was. And most of the people talking about it now are talking about it based on experience or whatever stories they've heard in the past,
Okay.
not now. Because now, yes, some providers will go as far as sending you to do your medical checkup yourself or sending representative to get blood samples or whatever. Some of them are really rigorous in the details that they need before they sign you up. But I'm not sure. I don't know what happened in the past, to be honest. I don't think it was that detailed.
Okay. No, it's good if they review it, and it saves both the company and you, the individual. Just get the detailed report and give it to them and let them have it, so that it prevents any doubts or issues in future. Okay, but no, that's really very good information. Like I said, it's really I'm learning a lot. So that's protection, and yeah, it's very I think it's a good thing to think about that. At what age, I mean, what advice would you give in terms of age for you to start thinking about getting a protection? Definitely not 20s. You can't go and tell a 20-year-old person, start thinking about, can you?
Why not?
Oh, really? Okay. I was thinking maybe like late 30s, 40s. I don't know what I'm thinking about.
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
Maybe I'm giving away my age. I don't know. But how early can you start to, think about protection or start to invest in it?
Once you're an adult, I would say, once you're an adult, you need to get protection. So, for example, as a family with young children, if you decide to get, say, critical illness, you can get cover even for your children, because life insurance, children can, once you have a family, your children can be under you. Yeah. But when you turn 18, most of these covers don't, because you're grown up, you're an adult at that age. So you're not covered under your parents again. I've met a few people that seem to have cover as that when they took it, it covers their children up to 21, 23 even. But you don't see very many of those these days. When you become an adult, you then have to think about getting your own cover. But of course, we also have to think about how are you going to fund it. So you might be 18, but maybe you're still in school. So some of these covers would actually ask you when you're taking them out, what age would your child stop being financially dependent on you? Because that would be taken into consideration. So yes, I would say once you're an adult who's financially independent, then you need to start thinking about getting protection.
Okay. No, that's really very helpful advice. Thank you for that. Okay, so a lot about, I know we can go on and on about this protection because it's an interesting and relevant, very important topic. But let's come back a bit to the mortgage, because I know many of the foreign nationals have mortgage, maybe not protection, because no one wants to talk about death and all those and sickness, but mortgage, because it's seen as investment, everybody wants to buy a house. So what's your advice, your professional advice? For a foreign national that comes in here and settles, and you do know the money spent on incurring visas and all that, and sometimes they end up with lots of debts. Now, at that point, what would your advice be? And they want to, go into the ladder, the property ladder, property market, and they come to you, advice. They have this debt, like I said, visa and all that. What would your advice be? Do you think it's something that one should go into, or it needs to be a certain time? Is the best time to go into the property market, especially now we're looking at the foreign national, because they are coming in, with different challenges, and finance is one of them, and all that. What would your advice be?
Well, if a foreign national has debt and wants to get on the property ladder, it's not going to stop you per se. It just depends, because the big thing when it comes to a mortgage application is affordability. And not just are you able to afford it now, but are you still going to be able to afford it if interest rates go up?
Like it did in the last year.
Yes. There were people who were on rates of 1 point something, and now they're up to 4 point something. So those are the things you need to think about when you're thinking about going on the property ladder. It's not just now, because some people argue, but my rent, I can pay my rent, I've never defaulted. Your rent is different though. Your rent is you and your landlord, and a mortgage is
you and the bank.
Is you and the bank, and you've taken a huge sum of loan from the bank and committed to, most people, 25 years and upwards. So you can't compare. It's not like for like at all. There's a lot to consider. So first of all, is it going to be affordable? So my first advice would be get rid of the debt as much as you can. Make sure that your outgoing is as low as possible. Giving mortgage advice made me to see different types of spending habits.
Okay.
I've seen accountants. I think one accountant said the best advice she got was to make sure that her expenditure or whatever mortgage she was getting was a third of her income, for example, so that at every point she could afford it. It wasn't going to be a struggle. And it's a good advice. If you can make it 1/10, even better. The idea is make sure it's affordable for you. So if you have a lot of debt and you look at every month, say your salary is what, £2,000, but every month without the mortgage, £1,000 is going out, then you might you might be better off reducing that £1,000 to make sure that if interest rates went up in the term of your mortgage, you can still afford it. It's not going to be a struggle. That would be the first advice I would give. Reduce your outgoings. Some people might argue to say, make sure you get a house that you can afford at first. But again, you see the word afford, because if your outgoing is little, then you can sort of indulge. Some people like to achieve their dream through their house. Some people, their passion is their car. So if you want to know whether they have money, look at what they're driving. Some people, it's what goes in their tummy. So they can invest in eating whatever they want. While some other people, it's their house. I've seen someone who says, it has to be a new build. It has to be a 4-bed. It has to have 3 bathrooms. So everybody has what their dream is and what makes them get up in the morning to go to work. Just make sure it's affordable. The key word is affordability. Once you're able to tick the box for affordability, and you can only manage affordability if you're able to, keep a tight rein on what is going out. Because what is coming in, you might not really be able to control that.
Yeah, definitely.
But you can control what's going out. Yeah.
Okay. And would you advise someone that just, comes in to get a house, or do you advise them to first start renting?
If they can get a house, why not? Because it's an investment anyway, especially if you're going to be in for the long haul. So a mortgage is not as...
Sorry, because I'm asking things like, I think there's so much that goes into buying a property. I mean, that's my own opinion. It's not something that should be rushed, because you need to think about the location. You need to think about, like you said, the sort of house you're looking for. I know these days people think about schools. I mean, if you have kids, is it a place? I mean, you're buying the house, but I do know you could sell it, I think, at a later time. So I just think there's so much around that's actually taking a decision to, I want to own a property.
Yeah. Most people that come in and want to buy a house, they need to think about why and how long. But as a mortgage, if I put my mortgage advisor hat on, it's going to be, do you meet the criteria? It's not just I want to buy a house. There's certain criteria that you also have to meet. Do you meet that criteria? And what are your plans? If you're only coming to study, for example, and you're not going to be here for more than 2 years, what's going to happen to that house then? Okay, you're going to sell, which is a risk, because you have to first put the property on the market. There's no guarantee that there's somebody waiting the next day to buy that property. So you need to think about what exactly is your plan and how long is that plan for, because that's what's going to inform where you're going to buy. Then of course, there are other nitty-gritty, like, do I have kids? What school do I want my kids to go to? Am I going to have a neighbor from hell?
And we do the TV program, right? There's a TV program like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, but it's some people's reality, and you don't want to be the one in that reality. So there's a lot to consider. But initially, yes, you want to think about, what's my plan? Why am I getting it? Some people actually come on the mindset of, I want to be able to invest. Yes, even if I'm staying for only 2 years, I plan to sell. So what you need to bear in mind is, how easy will it be to sell? Which informs your decision on the location, because there's some hotspot areas that would go out of the market quickly, and there's some that would stay for ages. So there's so many things. And I suppose if you're coming to study, then that would also inform what school, because you need to be in a town that is busy to be able to sell the house quickly.
Okay, well, that's interesting, because I know, I've had this conversation with people about to buy or not to buy, really. And then the other one now, that obviously I think is because of what happened last year, the interest rate, second homes, and a friend really has a second home and she was screaming that she's going to have to let it go. So I'm guessing your response would be it's not a good advice, is it?
No, it depends. It depends on your personal circumstance. A lot of people go into the second home thing probably without
Investment, so they see it as, they want to be in a property market where they are renting, spaces or rooms, bringing in money.
yeah, but they haven't thought of other things. What's the
Maintenance.
tax implication, for example? If you're on a certain income bracket, you've bought a house already, remember, so there's going to be stamp duty for the second one, additional homeowners. There's a lot involved that people don't really think about before they jump into it. Getting a second property as investment is good, but I would say you need to do your research first and do your research thoroughly to find out the implication, whether it's a tax implication, cost-wise. You've spoken about maintenance as well, because you might not be the one, or you might not even have the time to maintain a property that you put tenants in. Earlier on, you spoke about Airbnb, for example, different ballgame. So mortgages, there's residential mortgage, there's buy-to-let mortgage, depending on what.
Two different.
Yes, there are two different ones. Depending on what you want to do. Are you buying a house to live in, or are you buying a house to rent?
Yes, and then
If you're renting, is it for a short let?
the rates are different, obviously. Yeah.
And there are different criteria. So there's a lot that people need to sort of get education and understanding around before they delve into it, to be honest. A lot of people, to be fair, there are a few people who became what we call accidental landlords. And by saying that, I mean, you bought a house to live in with your family, and then somewhere along the line, you got a job promotion or change in career that meant you had to move town, change location, sorry. And what then happens to that mortgage? You're not going to be living there because it's going to be too far. Say you get a job in London and you're living in Aberdeen, for example, how are you going to commute that? That's going to be an expensive. So yes, remember the initial purpose, you took out a mortgage as a residential mortgage. So there's provision for that. But what people don't realize is, if I become an accidental landlord, what is the implication? I'm on a fixed deal already, tied to one deal with this lender, and then I become an accidental landlord. What's going to happen going forward? That's where it becomes a bit tricky.
Does it change? Would the law change? Wouldn't you still? I mean, I'm guessing all you need to do is still just be paying the bank. Would it change because you have
to inform the bank
that
your circumstance. Yes, you need to get their consent. So there's what they call a consent to let form that they will get you to fill out and everything.
And does that affect the price in terms of what you're going to pay? Would it go up?
Well, if you're still on a fixed deal, it won't.
Okay.
The challenge comes when you go to a variable. Yeah. So when your deal comes to an end and you move to a variable rate, and then you want to fix it, and it's not going to be as easy for you to say, okay, no, I don't like this lender's deal, I want to move somewhere else, because then you have to think about valuation. The new lender is definitely going to want to value the property. Is it going to be the same value as your current lender? If you're in a place where, houses sell quite easily, it's a good market for houses, then you're not really affected, I suppose. But if you're in a place where houses are struggling, then that becomes a challenge,
Oh my God, there's so much. There's really, really so much about this mortgage protection, this space. And I know we can go on and on, but I definitely probably will be inviting you back again, because I'm not done with the questions, but I don't want to stay too long. So what's the best way if someone wants to contact you for more advice, either mortgage protection? How would someone contact you?
So yes, even though I'm certified to give mortgage advice, remember, I'm not doing mortgage advice anymore. So I won't be giving up-to-date information, because I will be focusing all I'm doing now on investments, for example. Yes.
Okay. What sort of investment? So let's just speak just a bit about, so what sort of investment advice are you able to give, or what are you currently doing?
So at the moment, I'm working with Santander as an investment financial advisor, and I give investment advice. So it's basically Santander's products that I give investment advice on. whether it's bonds or shares or cash or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. So, but if someone wants to like back to the contact, how should they contact you if they want to?
I think the best bet would be on LinkedIn because I had
Okay.
to pull down my my social media page. I had like social media pages for when I was self-employed,
Okay.
but because I'm not doing that anymore,
Yeah.
so LinkedIn, yes, would be the
Yeah.
best.
No, I did notice you at a point you were very active in LinkedIn, and I appreciate the fact that you kept on, saying so many things that you need to do this, giving advice. I know you mentioned one time about I never knew it was possible where two families would come together to get a mortgage or something. Like you get support and you bring your finances together.
Family. I'm trying to remember the name now, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yes, not necessarily two members of a family. So a brother and a sister, for example, or a dad and a daughter.
Okay. Yeah. Bringing finances together.
Yeah, joint borrower, sole proprietor mortgage. Yeah.
Something like that. I don't want to try and pronounce that, but what I'm saying is that you kept on giving good content, which I think was helpful. Okay, before we go, and looking at the time, so what advice would you give someone that is listening, probably someone as a foreign national and is thinking about buying a house for the first time? Person has settled, let's say person has settled, is a settler, and is working, and they still it's your space, so you're so knowledgeable, and I like the way you're just giving information. But for some people, it's going to be a bit complex and a bit complicated.
Yeah, I would say don't listen to one person.
Yeah.
My initial reaction was going to be speak with a mortgage broker, but I met people.
Advice.
No.
Oh, really?
It's good advice. Speak to a mortgage broker, but don't speak to one.
Okay.
Speak to as many. Don't give up.
Okay.
Because personally, we spoke with brokers before I became a broker, and we still got pushbacks. If you speak to your bank, because that should be your first point of contact, right?
Mm-hmm.
But your bank can only offer you what your bank has. You might not meet their criteria. So yeah, speak with your bank. If you meet their criteria, even better. But speak with a broker, but don't speak with one person. Speak with as many people as you can, because it increases your chances of getting someone that would be able to help you. Sometimes, if it's a really busy broker, for example, who hasn't had personal, because I was able to help a lot of foreign nationals because of our own personal experience. It was like my mission was to help foreign nationals. But if you meet someone who's not as patient, why would I involve myself in all that work when I can get something easier to get? So yeah, speak with as many people as you can. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that's really, really good advice. So thank you once again for listening in, and remember, if you do have a personal story you want to share, one of maybe you've gone through something difficult and you want to share it just for the purpose of encouraging or empowering someone, please get in touch by sending an email to livingresilient101@gmail.com. And remember to always stay educated, get enlightened to become empowered. Thank you, and see you in the next episode. Bye.